If this story left you speechless, smash that like button. It helps more people discover these wild tales. Want more? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we drop new Reddit deep dives every week. And hey, comment your wildest family drama below. Yours might be our next video. Story 1. When I was 9, my mom died from cancer. 6 months after mom died, my dad met Laura and they moved in together and got married 7 months later. My dad forgot about me in all of this. Before Laura, he was depressed all the time and almost never left the couch. Then once he got out there and met her, he focused on marrying her super fast. It made me resentful because I felt like he didn't care about me, just himself. It took him and Laura telling me she was pregnant and me storming out of the house when I was 11 for him to start questioning stuff. He followed me all the way to my uncle's house and asked me why I stormed off and wasn't excited. I ranted at him and took out all my frustration on him in the walk back to the house. He promised he'd do better, but then his focus was on Laura and the new baby, and Laura was about ready to give birth when he told me he hated me pulling away and not being excited and said he'd do anything to fix our relationship. So I told him he needed to give me time where he didn't talk about Laura or the baby or cancel because of one of them. I said he needed to prove he meant what he said. I told him one time wasn't enough either. Our first 2 days weren't great and he answered several calls from Laura. The third time I told him it was his last chance and he ignored a couple of calls before reading a text from her that she was gone into labor. He asked if his third chance would be up if he went to the hospital and I said yes. So he stayed for a while, but then he said I'd need to forgive him at some point and he left me with my grandparents and uncle and got to the hospital, but Laura had given birth by then. Laura hated me for it. I didn't get over it like Dad expected me to, and I saw that our relationship would never be the same and that he wasn't the same person as he was before Mom died. I know losing someone you love does that. I changed when Mom got sick and when she died too. But my dad turned into someone so different. He stopped reading the room and just acted so naive or even dumb. Like when all he would talk about was Laura and the baby, and even when I never engaged he still wouldn't ask if I was okay. And after missing the birth and what we had talked about him bailing on me, he acted like everything was fine. He kept trying to make me hold the baby and would ask me why I wasn't excited and talked about the baby but never addressed the fact I said if he left I wouldn't forgive him, and he left early anyway. He also acted like he had no idea why Laura was so angry at me and why she refused to interact with me after that. He'd say we were family and that I was the best big brother. He told her he was the happiest he had ever been and he never loved anyone more than her or my half-brother. I was standing right there when he said it, and when I stormed off he played dumb about why that would be. I distanced myself more while Laura wanted me around even less. Then at the end of last year she told Dad to send me to live somewhere else and Dad decided we all needed therapy. We started in March and only Dad talked for months. The therapist would ask me and Laura questions but we didn't answer. She broke first, and a month ago she talked about her issues and how angry she was that I had made Dad choose between saving his relationship with me and being there for her and my half-brother when my half-brother was born. She said at some point she had hoped and expected me to be remorseful, but I never was, and I was the reason Dad missed the birth. The therapist asked why she'd blame me instead of Dad, and she said because I manipulated Dad to ignore them because I was hurt he'd moved on. It took me a couple more weeks to say anything, but when the therapist asked me if I would ever apologize for what happened I said no, and when she asked why I said because I didn't feel bad about it. I said that day just showed me that nothing was going to change and Dad wasn't the parent I knew before Mom died. And that I didn't feel bad that he missed the birth. That he was the one who decided when we spent time together. I was just the one who said he couldn't cancel on me a bunch because he was always acting like Laura and the baby were the only 2 who mattered. Laura told me at 11 I should have known babies need more time and that becoming a parent is exciting and that Dad needed to be there more than he needed to fix things with me. When I refused to apologize, she said she did not want me living with her or her kids because she doesn't want them becoming like me or picking on my hatred for her and Dad and my indifference to them. She said I'm almost an adult and should feel guilty and apologize, but clearly I'm without a conscience. My dad sat through all of those discussions over 2 weeks and still acted naive and dumb. Story 2. My wife and I have been together for 18 years, married for 8. Since practically day 1 of our relationship, my wife has never wanted kids. She was a little wishy-washy when we were young in that "I really don't want this, but I don't want you to be upset" way, but it's always been clear how much the idea of being a parent stresses her out. I, however, have always wanted to be a dad ever since I was little. I realized pretty quick though that's incompatible with the life I want with her, and that I would rather take the guaranteed future I have with her over hypothetical children I could have with someone else. My wife is my soulmate, she's my better half, she's seen me at my absolute worst and stood by me and vice versa. I have zero remorse, regrets, or resentment about my decision. But over the better part of a year my wife has started making jokes about having children. Her friends have kids that are growing up now and she says things like "almost makes you want your own, huh?" Or "we have that extra bedroom." Or "aunt, name, is here." She's never called herself an aunt before. She used to say she didn't understand why people call babies cute, but now when there's one at a restaurant she can't stop staring at it. 2 days ago we split a bottle of wine and she got tipsy enough to just come out and say it. She wishes we had kids. She's been looking into IVF, she's afraid she's missed out on motherhood. She wants to add another person to our family and make it whole. I think that's a terrible idea. She brings up that I wanted kids, and that's true, but that was when we were young. We're both in a place we love with our careers. We love taking trips and doing impulsive outings that you can't do when you're a parent. I like having money and time and freedom. My parents had me late in life and I became an orphan when I was 31 and they were in their 70s. The time I had with them was so short compared to the rest of my life. I can't do that to my children. Not only that, but she has medical conditions that would make carrying a child very risky, and we were told that back in her 20s. Our child could inherit the same disability she has just like she did from her mother. I brought all this up to her that night, but she kept saying it would be different or it would be worth it. She says I would be a good dad, and I would be lying if I've never thought that she'd be a good mother. She says that the time, energy and money we have now is what makes it possible to have a child. We pretty much just went around in circles in our discussion until we called it a night, and we haven't talked about it since, but it's like there's this wall between us now. I don't want to leave things unsaid, but I don't know what to say that'll get through to her. How do I tell her it's a bad idea to have children now? Story 3. My ex-wife and I split when our daughter was 5. She's 11 now. I've been there every other weekend, every holiday I could get, sending child support and extras. She's always been quiet, but this weekend when I picked her up, she asked me, "Is it okay if I call Josh Dad too?" Because I already do. Josh is her mom's fiancé. I tried to smile and say, "Of course, if that makes you happy," because I didn't want her to feel bad. But my chest still hurts. I sat in my car after dropping her off and cried. I know it's not her fault, and maybe it's just easier for her to call him that since he's there every day. But it feels like someone just erased me. I don't even know how to tell her it hurt. I probably never will. Story 4. I ended things with my girlfriend yesterday after 9 months together, because apparently I was supposed to treat her Instagram stories like a full-time emotional surveillance job. It started when she posted a black screen to her story with the caption, "Some people really disappoint you all." No context. No explanation. Just that. So I ignored it. Because I'm not a mind reader, and I refuse to play high school mind games. I figured it was about a friend, work stress, or just her usual passive-aggressive venting. Turns out, it was a test. She told me I failed because I didn't immediately slide into her DMs, panicking over what was wrong. According to her, my lack of instant concern meant I didn't care enough. I told her that if she had an issue with me, she could use her words like an adult instead of dropping cryptic hints and waiting to see if I'd pass some invisible loyalty exam. She called me cold and emotionally unavailable. I called her manipulative and exhausting. She cried. I packed my things. Now she's blowing up my phone, saying I'm heartless for leaving over one small thing. But it wasn't just one thing. It was the constant tests. The mood swings. The social media theatrics. I'm not signing up for a relationship where love is measured by how quickly I decode her vague posts. I want a partner, not a puzzle I have to solve every day just to avoid a meltdown. I want peace, not emotional scavenger hunts where I lose if I don't play along. So yeah, I'm done. Blocked. Logged off. And for the first time in months, I can finally breathe. Story 5. I was born in South Africa, as were the rest of my family. However, because my siblings were quite a bit older, they spent most of their childhood there, while I did not. When I was about 4 years old, my family moved to Germany. I have lived there since. Not many people know that I am from there unless I have said, or they have met my family, because I have no accent and my name origin is from a different country. We speak English and German at home. We have never returned to South Africa, so I have very little connection to the country or the culture. I started dating my boyfriend last year. We met through school and some mutual interests. I think that I probably never really mentioned where I was from originally. It's never been something that I find important for people to know about me. I think he found out this year, and it didn't seem like a big deal. I'm like everyone else that I know. I don't think it makes me any different in ways. And he didn't seem to care. But things just started to feel kind of weird, I guess. Like one time he asked how my parents would react if someone in my family was dating someone who was black. I said they wouldn't care, and he seemed surprised by that. It's little things like that, where he seems to assume my parents are just racist. But my parents aren't racist at all. My mother is a pediatrician, and worked in a lot of humanitarian causes in other African countries when we were living there. And they've never raised me or my siblings to see anyone differently based on what race they are. And they don't believe in apartheid or anything like that. They're just not like that. They're normal. And it would bother me if it was just about my parents and my family, but he seems to think I'm racist too. One reason is that it's because all my friends are the same race of me. But it's not like I filter people through that. It's just my sports and where I have been to school. Those are the people I have met and liked, so they are my friends. It just bothers me, I guess. Because I've never done anything wrong, and it feels like he's just assuming who I am, just from where I was born and some historical policies. I don't really know how to talk about it to him though, because I don't want to sound bad, I just don't like it. Story 6. Partner and I recently got engaged, and my parents have offered to take us out to dinner to celebrate at my mom's favorite restaurant. The catch is that I really dislike this place. I have made this known previously, and it has even been a running joke with them about how I am terrified of the restaurant, which is fine. I can take a joke. But it is just not making me feel very good that in order to celebrate us they offered to take us somewhere they know we don't like. The restaurant is fine. It's not even bad. My problem with it is that it's in my hometown and it's a spot where, without fail, my parents will see their friends. Their friends will come up to the table and say hi and stay and talk a bit. I don't dislike these people and gladly socialize with them in other contexts, but I just hate having to sit through these interactions while I'm at dinner. We often usually see people from my high school, which also isn't my favorite. I am not a particularly socially anxious person, but I just really dislike this for some reason. When I was invited, I tried to make a light-hearted joke about it being my favorite, and my parents said they don't want to drive very far. I gently offered to chauffeur everyone somewhere else since it was a special occasion and offered a list of places I have been wanting to try for the occasion. This morning I was told off by my dad saying that I was being rude and that when I am invited to dinner the polite thing is to just say yes, not to ask to go somewhere else. This whole thing is bothering me a lot more than I thought and kind of hurting my feelings and making me feel unseen. It is putting me in a bad mood and making me want to stay home since if I bring it up again I will be the one making a big deal and being rude etc. and I will never hear the end of it. I feel the only way to keep this from being an issue is to go along with it and celebrate somewhere I don't even want to be just to please my parents. Story 7. So on Saturday my husband and I were hanging out at home. He was playing video games and I took a nap on the couch. Everything was perfect. When I woke up he had completely shut down. I asked him a few times throughout the day if he was okay or if he wanted to talk about anything and he just very coldly told me no every time and asked for space. Bedtime rolls around and he's still not speaking to me. I asked him if I did something wrong and he told me no, that he was just in his head and needed my support with being more disciplined in his gym health routine. I simply said I can do that. He then asks me what's wrong. I tell him that it's hard for me to not know what's happening when he shuts down like that, and I understand if he's not ready to talk in depth about it, but as his wife it would be helpful to know what the topic is so I know how to support and so I don't get in my head about myself and maybe if I did something wrong. Well, this upset him and he said he couldn't do that and slept on the couch. Sunday rolls around and he's still not talking to me and is sleeping on the couch. I was in tears by the end of the day because I'm highly anxious and I want to better support, but being shut out is scary for me. Well, that convo went nowhere and we went to bed. Monday rolls around and the same thing. Doesn't talk to me, and I try to talk to him in the evening again and he shuts me out and says he doesn't want to talk about it. But my nervous system is in full panic mode at this point. He tells me we'll move past this and that he was just in a weird headspace. Tuesday rolls around and again he's back to not really talking to me. He gets up from bed and goes to sleep on the couch. Throughout this whole time I'm still cooking, cleaning, prepping his lunch, doing his laundry, etc. Now that brings me to today. He left work early because he said he wasn't in the headspace. I came home, I asked him about his day and how he was feeling. I got very cold answers. I hugged him, I prayed with him, then I cooked him a nice steak dinner. Not even a thank you. Bedtime rolls around and I ask him what's going on and that we have to be able to communicate with each other. I tell him I really want to understand what's happening so I know how to support, but the distance is hurting me too. All he said was I'm done talking. I start crying at this point because I'm just so confused and sad. He gets up, grabs his keys and leaves the house at 12:40 a.m. It's been 2 hours and he's still not home. I have no idea how to approach this lovingly, but also I can't ignore the anxiety this is giving me. Aside from the fact that he wanted to grow in discipline, I can't figure out what else it could be. I feel honestly devastated by this. Like I can't even function at work because I'm so worried. I feel like maybe I shouldn't have asked him every day to talk to me, but also 5 days is so unhealthy. Loudly crying face IDK. What to do? Story 8. When my daughter was born, my sister-in-law posted the announcement of her birth before we did on Facebook. A couple of years later she posted a family portrait that included my brother, her, their daughter and my daughter with the caption "She calls me Mama now." Anyway, recently on Mother's Day, my sister-in-law created a Mother Day post with a picture of herself with her daughter and my daughter on Facebook and Instagram. The post annoyed me quite a bit and just reminded me of 2 other incidents that I mentioned above. In response, I took that same picture, rubbed out my daughter and reposted it in the comments section with a caption that read, "I've fixed that picture for you." Both my brother and my sister-in-law sent me really long angry messages, telling me to get therapy and proceeded to block me on social media. Story 9. Just found out today that my wife cheated on me 15 years ago with one of my best friends. When I confronted her about it, she did not deny it, and basically said that she hadn't thought about that in years. I was expecting something more heartfelt or some version of an apology, but instead I got a calm recollection of what happened, and that she was unhappy at the time with our relationship. I won't deny that our relationship has its issues, and that we both could make more of an effort in many areas, but I never will accept that as an excuse for cheating. This hurts in so many ways, but because it is so fresh for me, and so long ago for her, I don't feel like she is fully feeling sorry for her actions. To further complicate this mess, the guy she cheated with is a very good friend that we see multiple times a year along with his family and kids. I'm supposed to be seeing him in a couple of weeks on a trip out of town, and now I don't know if I should confront him beforehand, or just cancel the trip and end all contact. They both are at fault, but per her story he was very persistent in pursuing the affair. I see posts that are similar on this sub and others, and while I do take some comfort in seeing I'm not alone in experiencing things like betrayal of trust and infidelity, it just hurts so freaking bad to know that the person who is supposed to be my partner, my constant in life, and the one person who I normally can share everything with, is the person who I can no longer trust. I'm planning on starting therapy for myself and as a couple as well as soon as possible. I just don't see how I will ever be able to not ruminate on this for the rest of my life. I'm heartbroken, angry, embarrassed, and so very overwhelmed. Story 10. I never thought I'd feel unsafe in my own home because of my little brother. At 20 years old, living with my mom and 10-year-old brother, I expected the usual sibling annoyances, maybe him borrowing my stuff without asking or being too loud while gaming. But this was different. It started small at first. I'd catch him lingering outside our mom's bedroom door, ear pressed against the wood like he was trying to catch every word. Then came the stains, on the living room couch, the office pillows, that unmistakable evidence of adolescent exploration left out in the open. I told myself it was just a phase, that all boys go through this. But then came the night I heard shuffling outside my bedroom door at 2 a.m. When I looked under the door gap, there he was, crouched low, watching. The moment our eyes met through that narrow space, he scrambled away like a startled animal. That's when the full weight of it hit me. My bathroom showers, my late-night changes of clothes, even just lounging in my room. Had he been watching this whole time? The realization made my skin crawl. I'd find myself pausing before opening my bedroom door, suddenly hyper-aware of every creak in the house. The two places that should have been my sanctuaries, my room and the bathroom, now felt like glass boxes where I was constantly on display. I wrestled with how to handle it. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to make him feel the same violation I felt. Another part remembered being his age, all those confusing new feelings and curiosities. But curiosity shouldn't come at the cost of someone else's privacy. After a sleepless night, I cornered him before school. The moment I brought it up, his face turned beet red. "I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, unable to meet my eyes. But as I calmly explained how his actions affected me, his shoulders slumped in admission. We had the most awkward conversation of my life that morning, about boundaries, about consent, about respecting other people's spaces. I kept my voice steady even as my face burned with embarrassment. This wasn't about shaming him for normal development, but about teaching him that his actions have real consequences. Later, I filled our parents in. Mom looked like she wanted to sink through the floor, but to her credit, she listened. Dad, though overseas, promised to have his own talk with him. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. In the days that followed, I noticed small changes. He'd knock before entering rooms now. The mysterious stains stopped appearing in shared spaces. Most importantly, that feeling of being watched began to fade. This experience taught me something important about growing up. It's not just about the changes happening to your body, but learning how to navigate those changes without hurting others. My brother isn't a bad kid. He's just a kid who needed someone to draw the line before he crossed it too far. The house feels safer now. Not because the locks have changed, but because the understanding has. And that, I've learned, makes all the difference.